I don't think most players quit Gray Zone Warfare because they hate it. I think most players quit because they run out of reasons to log in. Those are two completely different types of problems, because when I look at Gray Zone today, I see a game that's better than it was 6 months ago, better AI, better systems, a lot more content. But I also understand why some players are stepping away, and honestly, I think it has less to do with Gray Zone doing anything wrong and more to do with where the game is in a development state. If you've played Gray Zone recently, compared to launch, it's hard to argue that the game has greatly improved. But with 0.4 update, some updates kind of feel like the development progress went backwards. We've been given the visibility changes, long-term contracts, map improvements, performance improvements, and even AI improvements, but worse progression tracking as the tasks are not linear like in patch 0.3, making it harder to follow. We were also given a roadmap that finally gives players a sense of where things are headed, so that's kind of exciting to see. The game today is objectively more complete than it was a year ago. So why are players leaving? The problem isn't that players hate Gray Zone. The problem is that eventually players run out of short-term goals. At first, everything is exciting. Every task matters, every new location feels dangerous, every unlock feels important. But after enough hours, something changes. You start to understand the routes, you know the AI, and you know where the loot is. And suddenly, you're not exploring anymore, you're just kind of repeating in an endless cycle. Not to mention running from LZs to get to main loot locations just to find all the AI dead and no loot to be found, which results in a lot of frustration. Which leads directly into the task system. I don't think the task system is directly bad, I think it eventually becomes a little too predictable. Go here, kill these enemies, pick this up, return to a cop, and just repeat that cycle. And while this works for progression, in some sense, it doesn't always create memorable moments. The best moments in Gray Zone usually aren't planned, they're the random PvP fights, the crazy loot you find on the players, and the unexpected squad battles, the moments where the game kind of surprises you in general. These moments are harder to create when players spend most of their time fighting over the same cop for an hour, camping LZs, or just struggling to have the reason to go to an X location because it's usually empty. Now, Burnout doesn't happen all at once. I think this is where a lot of people misunderstand Burnout as a general concept. Burnout usually doesn't happen because of one bad update, one annoying task, or even because of one death. It's usually a bunch of small things that slowly add up over time. For example, repetition. The first time you clear an area, it's exciting. The 10th time, it starts to become familiar, and the 50th time, well, you're just on autopilot. The same thing happens with tasks. At first, you discover new locations and learn the new map. Later on, you're following a route you've already run dozens of times, and eventually the excitement of discovery starts getting replaced by routine. Then there's the progression. Early on, every unlock feels meaningful. A new vendor level, a new better weapon, and a new piece of gear. You're constantly moving forward, but eventually those upgrades become further and further apart. The grind becomes much longer, and some players start asking themselves a simple question: what am I even working towards now? That's probably the biggest challenge of Gray Zone Warfare today. Not that players hate the game, not that the game is bad, but that eventually some players run out of goals before the next big update even happens. Now, why is this considered normal? The thing is, this isn't unique to Gray Zone Warfare. I've already discussed this in multiple other videos, but every early access game goes through the same type of thing. Players consume content faster than developers can create it. A player can finish hundreds of hours of progression in just a few weeks. Building the next update might take months. That's not failure on Madfinger Games' part, that's just the reality of development. I used to develop for a game server creating missions for players, and it would take me hours to write the code, write the dialogue so players had options, and test/fix bugs, just to have players complete my now released work in 30 minutes or less. Which is why I assume Madfinger Games kind of copy and pasted some of the mission types. They know this is not the final rendition of the game, so let's focus on other things, but also ensure players never run out of missions, which is exactly how 0.4 release felt to me. So ultimately, what keeps players coming back? And this is where Gray Zone Warfare gets really interesting, because if you ask most players about their favorite moments, they're usually not talking about tasks. They're talking about the unexpected moments, as mentioned earlier. The PvP fights that weren't supposed to happen, the squads that appeared out of nowhere, and the players carrying gear worth more than, well, your entire kit that you're wearing now. And even the helicopter landing instantly turning into chaos. Those are the moments people remember, not because they were well scripted, but because they were unpredictable. I think that's why burnout eventually happens, because after you've completed most of your tasks, there isn't always a larger goal waiting for you. You finish the main task, most side missions, and some contracts, which builds up your stash, resulting in players starting to ask, okay, well, now what? Because there is little to no endgame right now, and Madfinger is aware about this. Then follows your friends playing other games, squads becoming smaller, and players overall just waiting for the next update. But that's exactly why I'm excited about some of the future systems Madfinger has talked about. Combat Outposts not being the center of the PvP, conflict zones ever changing to better assist global knowledge of fights but not giving away player positions within them, and even the introduction to Ground Zero as an endgame. Those aren't just new features, they're potential reasons for players to create their own funny situations and memorable fights. Because the strongest moments in extraction shooters usually aren't the ones developers have planned. They're the ones that happen because players have a reason to be in the same place at the same time, and if Grayzone can create more of those moments, I think it gives players a reason to keep logging in even after burning out from task grinding. Now, why am I still optimistic about Grayzone's future? The reason I'm not worried is that the next stage for Grayzone doesn't seem to be focused on adding more tasks. It seems focused on creating more reasons for players to interact with each other within both PvP and PvE. Changes including combat outposts, conflict zones, and dynamic systems as mentioned earlier. Because the future of Grayzone probably isn't more tasks, it's more experiences as a whole, and if Madfinger can pull that off, I think a lot of players who stepped away will come back, especially with a promising 0.5 release. Honestly, I don't think Grayzone is worried about competing with upcoming releases such as War Dogs, which players are saying will be the downfall of many other games. I mean, look at the other games to which the same sentiment was applied, like Battlefield 6 or Arc Raiders, etc. All games labeled as the destroyer of other games in that genre, but here we are now with a lot of other players playing a lot of different games across all these different split genres, and each of these games have a very strong community behind them regardless if people come and go from each of those games. And that's exactly what Grayzone Warfare will be, especially before a 1.0 release. So when people ask why Grayzone players are leaving, I don't think it's because the game is bad. I think it's because they've already experienced most of what the current version has to offer. Madfinger Games stated that they know players will probably quit after 1 week playing large updates such as 0.4 or 5, which shows that they're focused on their game, not concurrent players that most players stare at on Steam. The real question is whether the next wave of updates can give them a real reason to return to the game. What do you guys think? Why do players stop logging in or just playing in general? And what would bring you back to Grayzone Warfare tomorrow? Let me know down in the comments. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.